Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Carol S. Dweck. This video is made for educational purposes only. This book explores how our mindset, whether we see our abilities as fixed or something we can grow, shapes our success in all areas of life. It shows how embracing a growth mindset can help us overcome challenges, achieve our goals, and unlock our full potential. Through research and real-life stories, it reveals how our beliefs about ourselves can either hold us back or propel us forward. Carol Dweck started her research by watching how kids handled hard problems. She gave them puzzles, some easy and some tough. She noticed that some kids didn't get discouraged when they struggled. One boy even said, "I love a challenge." Another said, "I was hoping this would be informative." Carol was surprised because she thought people either coped with failure or didn't. These kids were different. They didn't see failure as a sign they weren't smart. They saw it as a chance to learn. Carol realized these kids had a belief that smartness and other qualities could be developed through effort. That's what made them keep going. She had always thought intelligence was fixed, like a stone. But these kids showed her that with practice and persistence, you can get smarter. She wanted to understand this difference. She looked back at history to see how people had always debated whether qualities like intelligence were fixed or could be changed. Some thought it was in your genes, others believed environment and training made a big difference. Carol found that both sides had some truth. Genes and environment work together. People can learn and grow all their lives. But not everyone starts with the same abilities. Carol realized that believing you can grow makes a big difference in how you approach life. People with a fixed mindset are always trying to prove they're smart or good. They fear failure because it makes them feel less smart. But people with a growth mindset see challenges as opportunities. They believe they can improve with effort. This belief changes how they act, how they feel, and how far they can go. Carol used examples from history and real people to show how this mindset affects everything from school to work to relationships. She wanted to show that growth is possible for everyone, as long as you believe in it. So Carol gave an example to show how the two mindsets really work. Imagine you're a young adult having a really bad day. You get a C+ on a midterm, you get a parking ticket, and your friend doesn't really listen when you talk to her. How would you feel? If you have a fixed mindset, you might think you're a total failure. You might feel like you're not smart or good at anything. You might believe life is unfair and that nothing you do matters. But if you have a growth mindset, you'd think, I need to try harder. Maybe I made a mistake, but I can fix it. You'd want to study more, pay the ticket, and talk to your friend again. Carol noticed that people with a fixed mindset don't believe in effort or challenge. They think effort means you're not smart. But people with a growth mindset believe that effort leads to growth. They see challenges as opportunities. Carol also found that people with a growth mindset are better at seeing their own strengths and weaknesses. They don't overestimate or underestimate themselves. They're more accurate because they're open to learning and improving. So, the mindset you have shapes how you think, feel, and act. It changes how you deal with failure, how you value effort, and how you see your own potential. And the best part? You can change your mindset. You can choose to grow. Benjamin Barber, a smart sociologist, once said that people aren't divided into the strong and the weak, but into learners and non-learners. That's a big idea. Why would someone be a non-learner? Well, babies are born to learn. They try everything, walking, talking, even big things like learning to ride a bike. They don't give up when they fall. They just keep going. But when kids grow up, some of them start to fear learning. They fear looking stupid. That's when a fixed mindset kicks in. These kids avoid hard challenges, even if they could learn so much from them. In one test, 4-year-olds were given a choice: do an easy puzzle or a harder one. Kids with a fixed mindset picked the easy one. They didn't want to risk making mistakes. But kids with a growth mindset wanted to try harder. One girl said, "I'm dying to figure them out." Carol also looked at students in Hong Kong. Some weren't fluent in English, but they had to learn fast. When asked if they'd take a course to improve their English, students with a growth mindset said yes. But those with a fixed mindset didn't care. They wanted to look smart, not learn. Carol also studied brainwaves. People with a fixed mindset only paid attention when they were told they were right. But those with a growth mindset were always interested in learning. Carol found that people with a growth mindset wanted partners who would help them grow, not just make them feel perfect. She also told a story about a woman married to a man with a fixed mindset. They had big fights because they had completely different ideas about what a relationship should be. Then Carol talked about CEOs. Some, like Lee Iacocca, stuck to what they knew and avoided challenges. Others, like Lou Gerstner, faced their shortcomings and led their companies to success. Carol also shared stories of athletes and even a paralyzed man named Christopher Reeve who believed he could learn to walk again. His brain changed and he started moving again. Carol ended with a story about students in chemistry. Those with a fixed mindset lost interest when things got hard. But those with a growth mindset kept going, even when it was tough. Carol told a story about a teacher who tested her students to see if they had a growth or fixed mindset. She gave them a trial period where she watched how they reacted to praise and correction. Students who were more interested in learning and growing were considered worthy. One student remembered saying, "This is hard. This is fun," which showed they were changing their mindset. Carol explained that people with a fixed mindset feel smart only when they're perfect and never make mistakes. But those with a growth mindset feel smart when they work hard and improve over time. She gave examples of students who gave up when things got hard and others who kept going. Carol also talked about people like Janet Cook and Stephen Glass, who acted like they had to be perfect right away and ended up cheating. She said they were just desperate to prove they were special. Carol shared a story about a girl named Loretta, who was labeled as not smart because of a test she took when she was 5. Even though she later succeeded, she never felt she belonged. Carol did a study with 5th graders to see if they believed one test could measure their whole future intelligence. Students with a growth mindset said no, while those with a fixed mindset believed a test could tell them how smart they were forever. Carol pointed out that people like Jackson Pollock and Elvis Presley were once thought to have no potential, but they grew into amazing talents. She said potential is about growth, not fixed ability. Carol shared a teacher's angry letter about how one test can't show a student's true ability. She said NASA and companies like General Electric looked for people who could grow, not just succeed. Carol ended with a story about John McEnroe, who had a fixed mindset and never reached his full potential. She said people with a fixed mindset often feel they have to be special and better than others. They look for constant validation and feel threatened by the idea of being ordinary. Carol told a story about a man named Gary, who was always trying to be number one. He was so focused on winning that he did things like paying extra to grind up a piece of wood just to make his work look better. But being number one came with a cost. He once made a big mistake in front of a Japanese lady, and even though she apologized and gave him a gift, he said it was still like being number one, being treated like you're better than everyone else. Carol explained that people with a fixed mindset often feel like they have to be special and better than others. They look for constant approval and feel threatened when they're not perfect. Carol then contrasted this with Michael Jordan, a growth-minded athlete. Jordan was called God in person by fans, but he said he felt embarrassed when people praised him like he was a religious figure. He knew his success came from hard work, not because he was born special. She also talked about Chuck Yeager, a pilot who believed that being good at his job was the result of hard work, not natural talent. Both Jordan and Yeager saw their abilities as something they could grow into. Carol shared a story about a boy named Robert who was treated like a genius until he didn't get into a top preschool. His parents stopped seeing him as special and started treating him differently. Carol said that in a fixed mindset, failure becomes a label, not just an experience. She also told about Bernard Loiseau, a top chef who lost his confidence after a small drop in his rating and eventually took his own life. Carol said that in a fixed mindset, failure can feel like the end of everything. Carol then shared a funny story about her husband and her catching a fish at a dude ranch. While she felt excited, her husband was upset because he thought her success made him look worse. This showed how people with fixed mindsets often feel threatened by others' success. Carol talked about how people with a fixed mindset often feel sad or down, especially during tough times like the worst of the year for depression. But here's the cool part. Even when they felt really bad, people with a growth mindset kept moving forward. They kept doing their schoolwork, kept taking care of themselves, and kept trying to fix their problems. The more they felt down, the more they pushed themselves to get better. One student told Carol how he felt so sad he could barely get out of bed, but every day he forced himself to do the basics: shower, shave, get to class. He even asked for help from a teaching assistant, who told him he wasn't actually depressed because he was still showing up and working hard. That's what people with a growth mindset do. They keep going, even when things are hard. Carol explained that while some people are naturally more sensitive or laid back, the most important thing is how they see themselves. If you believe your abilities are fixed, then failure can feel like the end. But if you believe you can grow, then failure just means you have more work to do. She shared stories of people like Seabiscuit, a horse that was supposed to be useless, and Laura Hillenbrand, a writer who fought through illness to write a powerful book. These stories showed how effort can change your life, not just your abilities. It's not about being born with talent. It's about working hard and believing you can get better. Carol also talked about how people with a fixed mindset fear effort because they think it means they're not good enough. She used the example of a violinist named Nadja, who stopped trying because she was afraid of failing. But when her teacher told her she'd be kicked out of class if she didn't try, she finally took the risk and won. And then there was Amanda, who didn't try in a relationship because she was scared of failing. But Carol said that in a growth mindset, you don't want something and do nothing. It's heartbreaking to look back and think, I could have been. Carol ended by saying that even if people with a fixed mindset read books about success and failure, they can't change their mindset because it's deep in their beliefs. She asked people to think about what they want to look back on and choose the mindset that helps them grow. And finally, she said, think about what you want to look back and say, then choose your mindset. Carol talked about two kinds of mindsets, fixed and growth. People with a fixed mindset believe their abilities are fixed, so they avoid effort and fear failure. But people with a growth mindset believe their abilities can be developed, so they embrace challenges and learn from mistakes. Carol used many examples to show how these mindsets shape people's lives. She talked about a violinist named Nadja, who stopped trying because she was afraid of failing, and a woman named Amanda, who didn't try in a relationship because she was scared of failure. Carol said that in a growth mindset, you don't want something and do nothing. It's heartbreaking to look back and think, I could have been. Carol also shared a story about a man named Phil who lived in a town called Punxsutawney. He thought he was better than everyone else and didn't care about the people around him. But then a blizzard hit, and he got stuck in a time loop, reliving the same day over and over. At first, he used the situation to show off and make others look bad. But after many days, he realized he wasn't making progress. He started to change his mindset, taking piano lessons, reading, and helping others. He learned to care about people instead of looking down on them. Eventually, he broke free from the loop and grew from the experience. Carol talked about how our mindset can change the way we learn and grow. She reminded us that we all start with a love for learning, but a fixed mindset can stop that. Think about a time you were enjoying something, like a puzzle or a sport, and then it got hard and you wanted to quit. That's the fixed mindset trying to take over. But we can push back. Picture your brain making new connections as you keep going. Keep trying, even when it's hard. Carol also said it's easy to want to be perfect. We might avoid people who challenge us or only hang out with those who make us feel good. But she said that's not the way to grow. Instead, she encouraged us to seek out real feedback and constructive criticism. If there's something from the past that made you feel bad, like a bad test or a mistake, look at it with a growth mindset. Ask yourself what you learned and how you can use it to grow. Carol shared stories about people like Edison and Darwin, showing that big achievements aren't just about being smart. They come from hard work, teamwork, and never giving up. She also talked about students and how their mindset affects their school performance. Those with a fixed mindset often give up when things get tough, while those with a growth mindset keep going and improve over time. She described a student named Jimmy, who used to hate school and never tried hard. But when he learned about the growth mindset, he changed. He started working hard, doing his homework, and even getting feedback to improve. His whole attitude shifted, and he began to believe he could learn and grow. June was really excited about her exam results. She did way better than she expected. She said she felt like she won the lottery. She thanked her teacher, Professor Dweck, for showing her how to use a growth mindset. She promised she'd use these strategies for every exam. She used to feel helpless, but now she feels strong and ready to learn. Carol talked about how people with a growth mindset know many ways to learn. She asked if everyone can do well with the right mindset. She used examples like Michael, a child who loved learning and challenge. He was really smart, but what made him special was his love for learning. She also talked about prodigies like Mozart and Darwin, who didn't just have talent, they worked really hard. Carol shared a story about a school in Los Angeles called Garfield High. It was one of the worst schools, but a teacher named Jaime Escalante taught college-level math to his students. He believed they could learn and grow. His students did really well, even beating some of the best schools in the country. Carol also told about Marva Collins, a teacher who changed the lives of kids in Chicago. She treated her students like geniuses and helped them learn a lot. She showed that with the right mindset and support, kids can learn anything. Carol explained that even though students are often sorted into different ability groups, this doesn't mean they can't grow. Some teachers with a growth mindset helped all their students improve, no matter where they started. Finally, Carol talked about artistic ability. She said people often think it's a gift, but she showed that with training, anyone can improve. She used the example of a man who asked people to draw owls. Even someone who couldn't draw well before could learn to draw with the right help. Carol talked about Twyla Tharp, a famous dancer and choreographer. She wrote a book called The Creative Habit, saying creativity isn't just about being born with talent. It's about working hard and being dedicated. She used examples like Mozart and Jackson Pollock to show that even people we think of as geniuses had to put in a lot of effort. Pollock, for instance, was really passionate about art and worked hard to become famous. His paintings were unique and showed a lot of feeling. Carol then turned to the topic of praise. She explained that praising kids for their ability can actually hurt their growth. She did studies with students, giving some praise for their ability and others for their effort. The kids praised for ability started to think they were only smart because of their talent. When they faced challenges, they avoided them because they were afraid of looking dumb. But kids praised for effort kept trying and got better over time. Carol used the example of Adam Gettle, a talented musician, to show how the pressure of being labeled as gifted can be harmful. Gettle felt the weight of being seen as a genius and ended up struggling with mental health and addiction. He eventually found peace by realizing he had his own path to follow. Carol also talked about the danger of negative labels, like being called bad at math or not smart. These labels can make people feel they don't belong, especially if they're part of a group that's been stereotyped. But she reminded us that people with a growth mindset can fight back against these stereotypes by working hard and believing in their ability to improve. Carol talked about how women with a growth mindset felt more confident in math class, even when others thought they weren't good at it. They could stand up for themselves and support each other. One student said that even when teachers didn't understand their ideas, they stayed calm because they had each other. But women with a fixed mindset started to feel like they didn't belong. One student said she lost confidence when a teacher called her answer a good guess instead of seeing it as smart. Carol explained that people with a growth mindset can fight back against unfair ideas about themselves. They don't let others' opinions control them. Carol also shared stories about how girls often trust other people's opinions too much. She gave an example about a time she was in a store and two women yelled at her for preparing her money. She felt bad for a long time, even though they were wrong. Carol said this happens a lot to high-achieving girls who grow up being told they're perfect. They start to believe other people's opinions about them. Boys, on the other hand, are often criticized and called names, so they don't take other people's words as seriously. Carol gave the example of Frances Conley, a top neurosurgeon, who still felt doubt from careless comments by male colleagues. She said the fixed mindset, plus unfair stereotypes, plus women trusting others' opinions, helps explain why there's a gap in math and science. She talked about Julie Lynch, a girl who loved computer programming, but lost interest after her teacher criticized her for using a shortcut. Carol said math and science need to be more welcoming for women, and a growth mindset is key. Carol then shared the story of the Polgar family, who raised three successful female chess players. Their father believed success was 99% hard work. He didn't praise talent but effort. Carol said the family had a growth mindset, and that's why their daughters succeeded. She encouraged people to think about their heroes and realize they often worked hard, not just had talent. She also suggested parents praise effort instead of ability and help others, especially those facing stereotypes, grow with a growth mindset. Carol used famous athletes to show that success comes from the mind, not just the body. She talked about Muhammad Ali, who hit his forehead to show where the brain is. People still think his greatness was because of his body, not his mind. Then she mentioned Michael Jordan, who wasn't a natural. He was cut from his high school team and wasn't recruited by the college he wanted. But he worked so hard, he became one of the best. His mom told him to discipline himself, and he did. Even after he became famous, he kept practicing. He said the mental toughness and heart were more important than physical skills. Carol also talked about Babe Ruth, who wasn't a perfect athlete at first. He had a big appetite and wasn't always good at hitting. But he worked hard and improved over time. He even got in shape during the off-season. Wilma Rudolph was a sickly child, almost died from polio, but she worked hard and became the fastest woman in the world. Jackie Joyner-Kersee, the greatest female athlete, started slow but kept working and eventually won many titles. She said her success came from hard work, not natural talent. Carol also mentioned Tiger Woods, who changed the belief that you can't train for golf. And Maury Wills, who struggled for years but finally succeeded with help and practice. She said people still think success is about being born with talent, not about working hard. Even experts say it's all innate, but Carol argued that mindset and effort matter more. So, the Boston Red Sox had a big chance to end their long wait for a World Series win. They hadn't won in 85 years, and fans were really hoping for a change. Pedro Martinez was their star player, but he didn't handle pressure well. When he lost a game, he got angry and acted out, hitting a batter, threatening another, and even throwing a coach to the ground. The writers said this made him look bad, and fans were upset. But even though Martinez messed up, the Yankees won and the Red Sox lost again. A year later, the teams met again. This time, the Red Sox had changed. They didn't let one player take over. They worked together, and finally, they won. It showed that character can be learned, not just born. Then, the story moved to Pete Sampras, who was at Wimbledon trying to win a record. He was down in the match, but remembered past wins and pulled through. Jackie Joyner-Kersee had an asthma attack during a race, but kept going, telling herself she could make it. She even won a bronze medal after a big injury, showing how hard she worked. Billie Jean King had a big moment in a match when she realized champions rise to the occasion when it matters most. Mia Hamm said mental toughness is key in soccer, and even though she didn't think she was the best, she believed she could be. John Wooden's story showed that character keeps you at the top. Even when you're good, you have to keep working. Darryl Strawberry, Mike Tyson, and Martina Hingis all reached the top, but didn't stay there. But others, like Ben Hogan, came back stronger after setbacks. The book explained that people with a growth mindset believe they can improve through effort. They find success in learning and getting better, not just winning. This mindset helps them stay strong, even when things are hard. After the 1998 Masters, Tiger Woods wasn't upset about not winning again. He was proud of how he kept going through tough weeks. He talked about how he enjoyed working hard and not giving up. Tiger is a big dreamer, always wanting to be the best. He said the best version of himself matters more than just winning. Mia Hamm said that if you give everything in a game, you're a winner no matter what. People loved her team because they saw how much they cared and how hard they tried. People with a fixed mindset think success is about being better than others. They don't like effort because it makes them question their talent. John McEnroe used to think he was the best, and he couldn't handle losing, especially to someone he knew. He even wanted his friend to lose in a match. When he lost badly in a doubles match, he stopped playing for years. He blamed everything on others and didn't take control of his game. He wished he could hide his flaws in a team sport. In contrast, people with a growth mindset see failure as a chance to learn. Michael Jordan missed a lot of shots, but he practiced until he got better. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar kept working on new shots after his dunk was banned. Tiger Woods kept improving his game by thinking about how to win and staying focused. He had a plan and worked hard to stay on top. Stars don't just win games, they take responsibility for their team. Michael Jordan knew that teamwork won championships, not just talent. Some players, like Patrick Ewing, wanted to be the best and didn't fit into a team role. They didn't win because they didn't play as part of a team. Every sport is really a team effort. Even solo athletes like Tiger Woods or Diana Nyad have a whole team helping them succeed. Tillis is frustrated because she feels people expect too much from her. She wants to be great, but she's stuck in a mindset where she thinks she has to be perfect. Her father left her when she was young, and she's still upset about it. But this anger is holding her back. Instead of focusing on her talent, she's scared people will think she's not good enough. She wants to be seen as someone who can do amazing things, like dunk the ball over the head 360, but she's not getting the results she wants. She's not taking control of her game. She's letting her fear stop her from growing. Candace Parker, on the other hand, is learning from her father. He teaches her that hard work pays off. When she didn't play her best in a game, he pushed her to try harder. She responded by playing her best and winning. She doesn't just want to be good, she wants to keep improving. Even after injury, she worked hard to get back to her best. Her mindset is about growth, not just winning. She knows that nothing is guaranteed, and that's why she keeps going. Tillis's team lost the championship, but Candace won the dunking title. This shows that the growth mindset leads to real success. It's not about being the best from the start, but about working hard, learning, and taking responsibility. It's about being a champion in the way you play, not just in the results. Candace Parker's story shows how a growth mindset can lead to real success. She learns from her father, who teaches her that hard work pays off. When she doesn't play well, he pushes her to try harder. She responds by playing better and winning. Even after an injury, she works hard to get back to her best. Her mindset is about growth, not just winning. She knows that nothing is guaranteed, and that's why she keeps going. On the other hand, there are leaders with a fixed mindset, like Lee Iacocca. He started out as a successful CEO at Ford, but his need to prove he was better than others started to dominate. He wanted to be seen as a hero and needed constant validation. When he was fired by Henry Ford, he was shocked and angry. He blamed others and focused on his image instead of the company's future. He spent money on his lifestyle and his reputation, not on improving Chrysler. He even tried to take over Chrysler again, but it failed. His ego and fixed mindset led to his downfall. Other leaders like Albert Dunlap were also driven by a need to prove themselves. Dunlap focused only on making money and ignored the people who worked for him. He fired workers and covered up problems instead of fixing them. He didn't want to grow or learn, which led to his downfall too. These stories show how a fixed mindset can lead to failure. Leaders who believe they are superior and need constant validation often lose sight of what really matters, building a strong company and helping others grow. A growth mindset, like Candace Parker's, leads to real success. Jeff Skilling was the next leader after Rich Kinder at Enron. He was seen as super smart and brilliant, but he used his smarts to show off and make others feel small. He didn't want to learn, he just wanted to prove he was better. When he had a co-CEO to help him, he didn't like it. He called the co-CEO "doesn't get it." Skilling treated Wall Street analysts like they were stupid, even though they were trying to understand his plans. He believed his ideas alone could make Enron money, even before the company made any real profits. This is how Enron got into big trouble. Skilling thought he was the smartest and luckiest person, so he never thought he could be wrong. He didn't admit anything was wrong, even when everything started falling apart. Other leaders like Steve Case and Jerry Levin, who ran AOL and Time Warner, did the same. They both thought they were the smartest and tried to take credit for everything. When they merged their companies, they didn't work together. Instead, they fought for power. Their companies ended up losing billions of dollars because they were too focused on themselves. These leaders, like Lay, Skilling, Iacocca, and others, showed how a fixed mindset can destroy a company. They cared more about making themselves look good than about the company or its people. They felt invincible and entitled, but in reality, they were heading toward failure. In contrast, growth mindset leaders like Jack Welch, Lou Gerstner, and Anne Mulcahy built strong companies by focusing on teamwork and learning. They listened to their employees, respected others, and believed in growth over ego. Jack Welch had to change himself before he could change GE. He wasn't perfect and had a lot to learn. In 1971, when he was being considered for a promotion, the head of GE's HR warned that Welch was arrogant, couldn't take criticism, and relied too much on his talent instead of hard work. That was a big red flag. But every time he got too big for his britches, something happened to remind him he wasn't all-powerful. Once, he got into his new convertible, put the top down, and got sprayed with oil. It ruined his suit and his car. He realized he was thinking he was bigger than he was. Another time, he bought a company called Kidder, Peabody, and it turned into a disaster that cost GE hundreds of millions. He learned that there's a thin line between confidence and arrogance. He realized real confidence comes from being open to growth, not from titles or fancy cars. He also had a moment where he caused a chemical explosion at GE. He was scared and went to face the boss, but the boss was kind and supportive. That made him want to help others grow instead of judge them. He started looking for people who had passion, not just good degrees. When he became CEO, he promised to grow, not to be the best. He opened up communication, asked for honest feedback, and made sure people felt heard. He stopped rewarding individual genius and started rewarding teamwork. He fired people who didn't follow the values, and he made sure the company was about growth, not ego. Lou Gerstner did the same at IBM. He came in when the company was in trouble, full of smugness and no teamwork. He started listening to everyone, not just the top people. He focused on customers, cut prices, and changed the culture to be more team-based. Anne Mulcahy did the same at Xerox. She was tough but caring, cut costs, and saved the company. She learned a lot, worked hard, and kept her people's morale high. These leaders showed that growth mindset is about humility, learning, and caring for others. They weren't just brilliant, they were passionate and grateful. They saw their people as the real heroes. So Dweck wonders if, in the future, women might be the main leaders in big companies, but she hopes not. She wants to see fewer leaders with a fixed mindset, whether men or women running the most important companies. She shares a study by Robert Wood and his team. They made groups of 3 people each. Half of the groups had people with a fixed mindset, and the other half had people with a growth mindset. The fixed mindset people believed that people can't change their management skills. The growth mindset people believed that skills can grow with experience. Both groups were given a task to manage a simulated furniture company. The growth mindset groups did better over time because they used feedback and learned from their mistakes. They talked openly and helped each other. The fixed mindset groups didn't discuss much, and their thinking stayed the same. That's called groupthink. It happens when people don't want to disagree or look bad. Dweck gives examples like the Bay of Pigs invasion, where Kennedy's advisors didn't question his decisions. She also talks about how leaders like Lou Gerstner and Anne Mulcahy changed their companies by encouraging growth and teamwork. She mentions leaders who punished criticism, like Lee Iacocca, and others who rewarded it, like David Packard. Dweck says leaders aren't born, they're made. People can grow if they're given the right support and environment. She ends by encouraging readers to reflect on their own mindset and how they treat others. She also talks about relationships and how a growth mindset helps people heal and move forward after heartbreak. Nicole Contos was getting married in a big, fancy wedding. Her whole family was there, and everything was going perfectly. But then the best man told her the groom wasn't coming. It was a huge shock. Nicole felt sad and hurt, but instead of giving up, she decided to go to the party and dance. She wore a little black dress and danced alone to I Will Survive. People saw her as strong and brave. She didn't use the word humiliated to describe how she felt, because she didn't think she was bad or broken. She used the pain to help her heal and move forward. The groom had gone on a trip alone, and a few years later, Nicole married someone else. She wasn't scared because she knew he'd be there. Dweck talks about how people with a fixed mindset react badly to rejection. They might even think about hurting others. She also explains that relationships are important, but hard to measure. People don't often think of relationship skills as a real talent, but they are important. She talks about how fixed mindsets can make relationships fail because people expect things to be perfect without effort. In a growth mindset, people believe that relationships can grow and change with work. They don't expect magic or mind reading. They communicate and solve problems instead of blaming each other. Dweck uses examples like Charlene and Max to show how fixed mindsets can lead to broken relationships. People with fixed mindsets think that if they have to work at a relationship, it's not meant to be, but experts say that all relationships need effort. She also gives examples of how miscommunication and assuming what others think can cause problems. She ends by saying that relationships need work, not magic, and that growth mindsets help people build better, lasting connections. Penelope's friends stayed home and grumbled about not finding good men. Penelope, on the other hand, went out and kept finding great guys. Each time, she fell deeply in love. She told her friends, "He's the one," and started planning their future. But then something would go wrong. A bad gift, a messy outfit, or poor phone manners would end the relationship. Penelope thought these were deal breakers, but they were really just small issues that could be talked about. In her own relationship, she told her husband, "I like a good present," and he promised to put effort into it. They both did, and it worked. Penelope assumed there was a perfect man out there, but Daniel Weil, a relationship expert, said that choosing a partner means choosing a set of problems. Relationships need work, not magic. Brenda and Jack were a couple who had trouble communicating. Brenda talked a lot without making sense, and Jack got bored. Instead of talking about it, they blamed each other. They thought Brenda was boring and Jack was selfish. But in reality, they just didn't know how to talk to each other. If Jack had asked Brenda why she was excited about her work, things would have been different. The story of Ted and Karen shows how quickly things can go from good to bad in a relationship if people stop trying to understand each other. But if they work together, they can save the relationship. In the end, the key is to stop blaming and start helping. Relationships are about growth, not perfection. Even when things go wrong, like with the Clintons, people can change and grow if they want to. Sometimes it takes a lot of work, but it's possible. The growth mindset lets you forgive, move on, and build something real. It's not about being perfect, it's about being willing to try. So, the growth mindset isn't about changing your partner into someone else. It's about helping them grow and reach their own goals. That's how real relationships work, by supporting each other. Even friendships can be places where we help each other grow. Friends can give each other courage and support when they need to make hard decisions. They can also remind each other of their strengths. Sometimes people need reassurance, like when they feel bad about ending a relationship or doing poorly on a test. A growth mindset helps us give that support in a way that helps them grow instead of just feeling bad. But there's also a danger. Some people use others to feel better about themselves. They might even make others feel worse. This is called a fixed mindset. A study showed that boys who believed in fixed traits about girls felt better about themselves when they believed girls were worse at math. That's not healthy. It's the same idea when people use friends to feel superior. One friend told me she didn't mind her friend's flaws because everyone has them, but she wouldn't put up with people who made her feel bad. That's important. Sometimes friends can be like that, brilliant and fun, but they make you feel worse. You might not realize it at first, but it's them trying to feel better by making you feel worse. I had a dream where someone took all my things, and I realized it was a friend who had been using me. I had been helping them without getting anything in return. It was time to stop. Shyness is another side of this. Shy people worry about being judged, which makes them anxious. But a growth mindset helps them see shyness as a challenge. They can still make friends and have good interactions. Shy people with a growth mindset act differently. They take control of their shyness and start to feel better as the conversation goes on. Bullies are also part of this. They use their power to judge others and feel better about themselves. Victims of bullying often feel rejected and want to get back at people. But revenge isn't the answer. It only makes things worse. So, there are some people who get really angry when they're bullied. They think revenge is the only way to feel better. They imagine hurting the people who made them feel bad. These people are often bullies themselves, and they see others as weaker than them. One famous example is Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the Columbine shooters. They didn't just feel bad, they wanted to make others feel bad too. They used their power to hurt others and feel better about themselves. But there are also people who don't see bullying that way. Some students with a growth mindset don't think the bullies are bad people. They believe the bullies are hurting themselves and that the problem is in their thinking. These students want to help the bullies, not hurt them. One kid named Brooks Brown was bullied for years but never wanted revenge. He believed people could change, and he tried to reach out to the bullies. He even offered a truce to someone like Eric Harris, hoping he might change too. Schools can help stop bullying by changing how they think about it. Instead of letting some kids feel better by hurting others, schools can create a culture of support and growth. One teacher, Stan Davis, made a program that cut bullying by over 90% in just a few years. He helped bullies change, supported victims, and taught others to help. He showed that when you praise effort, not just talent, kids are more likely to grow and improve. This is a story about how our mindset, whether we see people as fixed or growing, can change how we act, how we feel, and how we treat others. It's about choosing kindness, understanding, and growth over judgment and revenge. So here's a real-life story from a mom whose son is really smart, but he's got some big problems. She's the mom of a 5th grader who does amazing in school, but he's not trying hard because he's scared he might not be smart. Her husband praised him a lot for being smart, and now the kid is avoiding challenges because he's worried he'll fail. He thinks he's better than others, but he won't try new things. One of her students talked about how being praised for being smart made him avoid hard work. The mom realized she'd been doing the same thing when she praised her husband for solving a problem by saying, "You're brilliant." He reminded her that he'd worked hard and used strategies. She realized she'd been sending the wrong message. So what should we praise? We should praise effort, not talent. The mom talks about how she praised her daughter for her effort instead of her grades. She asked her questions about how she studied and how she improved. That helps kids focus on learning, not just getting good grades. But we also have to be careful about what we say about others. If we call someone a genius or a pea-brain, we're sending a fixed mindset message. When kids fail, we shouldn't reassure them by saying they're smart or that they'll do better next time. That makes them fear failure. Instead, we should help them learn from their mistakes. The mom shares a story about her daughter, Elizabeth, who didn't win a gymnastics competition. Her dad didn't tell her she was the best or that she was robbed. He told her she hadn't earned it yet and that she'd have to work harder. That helped her improve and win big later. Praising effort and helping kids learn from failure is the key. We should never judge kids or their abilities. We should focus on what they can do and how they can grow. When we give constructive criticism, we should help them learn, not make them feel bad about themselves. So, here's what the kids really think about their parents. Some kids believe their parents are judging them, thinking they're being bad or not smart enough. But other kids with a growth mindset feel their parents are trying to help them learn and grow. When parents help kids learn from mistakes instead of judging them, it makes a big difference. One boy told his parents he messed up his numbers at school. His mom tried to encourage him by saying he should tell his teacher he tried his best. But his dad was angry and sent him to his room. The boy ended up taking his mom's advice, even though he didn't follow his dad's. Parents start teaching kids from the very beginning. A new mom had trouble nursing her baby. Instead of getting frustrated, she stayed calm and told her baby they were both learning. This helped the baby and also helped her understand her child better. Kids learn these lessons early and pass them on to others. When a child with a growth mindset is asked for advice, they offer helpful tips, like thinking longer and asking for help. Kids with a fixed mindset give short, unhelpful advice, like just saying "I'm sorry." Discipline can be a way to teach, but sometimes it's just about judging and punishing. A 16-year-old named Alyssa wanted to try alcohol in a safe way. Her parents had a thoughtful discussion instead of just being angry. They helped her think through the risks and made sure she felt supported. Good parents set high standards, but also teach their kids how to reach them. There's a story about a girl named Sandy who was pushed by her parents to get into Harvard. When she didn't, she fell into a deep depression. Her parents only cared about her being smart, not about her happiness or learning. This shows how dangerous a fixed mindset can be. Parents who only care about success on their terms can crush their kids' confidence and love for learning. In the book, the author talks about how students and parents often have high standards, but those standards can be harmful if they're based on a fixed mindset. Many students feel like they can never reach their goals, which makes them stressed and gives up. But students with a growth mindset see these goals as something they can work toward. They believe that learning is about growing, not just getting good grades. One student said, "I believed for many years that grades were the most important thing, but I'm trying to move beyond that." This shows how a growth mindset can help people change their thinking and keep going. Parents who only focus on making their kids smart, not on their happiness or learning, can hurt their kids. For example, a girl named Sandy was pushed to get into Harvard, but when she didn't, she became very depressed. Her parents only cared about her being smart, not about her well-being. This shows how dangerous a fixed mindset can be for kids. The author also shares stories of teachers who believe in growth. Marva Collins taught kids who had been labeled as failing and helped them learn to read and even understand Shakespeare. She believed in her students and pushed them to do hard things. Another teacher, Rafe Esquith, worked with kids from poor areas and showed them how much they could grow. Even at Juilliard, a school for the most talented musicians, Dorothy DeLay believed that talent could be developed, not just given. She helped her students grow by being patient and believing in them. Great teachers set high standards, but also create a supportive environment where students feel safe to try and improve. They don't give up on anyone and believe that everyone can learn. This kind of teaching helps students grow into confident, capable people who can make a difference in the world. So, the question is, are challenge and love enough to make kids grow? Not quite. Great teachers don't just care, they teach students how to reach high standards. Marva Collins didn't just hand her students a book and say good luck. She made them read and discuss every line of Macbeth. She planned carefully, knowing which kid could handle which part. She said, "There is no magic here. I just love children and work harder than a lot of people, and so will you." She didn't give up on anyone. She made them work hard on the basics. She taught them to love learning, to think for themselves, and to work hard. She showed them that growth is possible. She made the gap between what they could do and what they needed to do feel manageable. She didn't let them feel stuck. She told them the truth and gave them the tools to close the gap. And when students didn't care, like Gary, she didn't give up. She challenged him, made him face the consequences of his choices, and eventually, he changed. He started working, and he even started writing. He became part of the class. He began to believe in himself. And that's what growth-minded teachers do. They believe in their students and help them believe in themselves. They don't just teach, they learn with their students. They grow with them. They're not just teachers, they're lifelong learners. They don't think of themselves as finished. They keep growing. And that's how they can reach every child. They believe in themselves and in their students. They believe that anyone can learn, and they help them see that too. That's how you build a growth mindset. That's how you change lives. So here's a story about a man who taught young players and how he changed their lives. His best player, Isaiah Thomas, had a lot of mixed feelings about him. Sometimes he wanted to shoot him, and other times he wanted to hug him. That shows how hard it is to be a mentor and how much it means to students. But this man, Coach John Wooden, didn't give up. He started at UCLA with a team that was really bad. They had no good equipment, and the gym was crowded and uncomfortable. But Wooden believed in them. He worked hard with them, and they improved a lot. They won their division, and then went to the big games. He taught them to work hard, to prepare well, and to give their best effort every day. He didn't care if they won or lost, as long as they gave their full effort. He treated every player the same, even if some were better than others. He believed in everyone and gave them equal attention. He didn't let anyone feel like they weren't good enough. His players grew not just as athletes but as people. They became better in life because of him. And when he had to take a player out of a game because he wasn't playing well, that player didn't get upset. He understood and even felt happy for the other player. That's the kind of coach. He was kind, fair, and always looking out for his team. Other coaches, like Knight, might have treated players differently. But Wooden believed in growth, not just winning. He showed that success can sometimes make people stop growing, but with the right mindset, you can always keep improving. That's what makes a growth mindset so powerful. It helps people keep learning and getting better, no matter what. And that's how you can change lives. I was in first grade when my family moved. Everything was new. New school, new teacher, new kids. The work was hard. I didn't know how to write my name, and I cried when the teacher asked me to. Every day I felt lost and scared. I didn't ask for help because I didn't know how. I just stood there, watching things happen without me. I wanted to run after the kids who left without me, but I didn't. I didn't try. I felt powerless. I kept thinking, why can't I just do it? I knew I could do amazing things in my dreams, but in real life, I couldn't even ask for help. I saw other kids like me bright, but stuck. They didn't try simple things because they believed they couldn't. That's a fixed mindset. When things go wrong, they feel like they can't change anything. Even now, sometimes I feel that way. Change isn't easy. You don't just get rid of old beliefs. New ones come in, but the old ones still live inside you. You have to fight them. That's why beliefs matter so much. They shape how you feel and act. In the 1960s, a doctor named Aaron Beck realized that people's beliefs cause their problems. He taught them to notice their thoughts and change them. That's how cognitive therapy started. People with a fixed mindset judge themselves and others. They think, this means I'm a loser. People with a growth mindset don't do that. They think, what can I learn from this? They look for ways to improve. When I taught my students about growth mindsets, they changed. Maggie, who used to fear writing, decided to take a class. Jason, the athlete, started learning instead of just winning. Tony, who thought he was smart, realized he had to work hard. They all had the same fear, but they learned to face it. A growth mindset gives you courage. It helps you chase your dreams. It helps you grow. And it helps you feel in control. Before the workshops, students' math grades were really bad. But after the growth mindset workshop, their grades went up a lot. They did better than the students in the other workshop. The growth mindset workshop only had 8 sessions, but it made a big difference. It helped students feel more in control of their brains and gave them the courage to try harder. Teachers also helped a lot by being supportive and encouraging. We made a program called Brainology to make this change easier. It was on computers and had animated characters, Chris and Dahlia, who had school problems. They learned about the brain and how it grows when you study. Students could do experiments, watch videos, and write about their own learning. Many said the program changed how they studied and improved their grades. Some kids were skeptical at first, thinking it was just a cartoon. but they started to believe in the ideas and tried harder. Teachers also changed. They realized that all students can learn, even the ones who struggle. They became more patient and understood that learning takes time. Change isn't easy. People often hold on to fixed mindsets because they give them a sense of identity and self-worth. Letting go of that can feel scary. But when you shift to a growth mindset, you open up to learning, challenge, and growth. It can make you feel more like yourself, not less. The rest of the book is about you. It's a workshop to help you think through your own challenges. The first dilemma is about being rejected from a school. A fixed mindset makes you feel like you're not good enough, but a growth mindset helps you take action, like asking for feedback. That leads to real change and new opportunities. So, let's go back to when you were rejected from graduate school. You tried to feel better, but it didn't work. Still, you could take the growth mindset step. You could feel bad and still reach out for help. Sometimes after a setback, you talk to yourself about what it means and how to deal with it. Then, when you sleep, your mind plays out all the worst possibilities. You dream of loss, failure, rejection. When you wake up, you feel like you've been through a war. But it doesn't matter. The plan is still the plan. The real change happens when you take action, even when you feel like you're not good enough. Now imagine you're a top football player, the Heisman winner picked first by the Eagles. But now you're in the pros, and the pressure is overwhelming. You're scared. You can't focus. You feel like you're being attacked by big guys. You start to think you're not a leader, not a real player. You hide away after games and avoid the media. But that's not the way to win. In a growth mindset, you realize this is a big step, a new challenge. You ask for help. Talk to other players. Learn from their stories. You start to feel part of the team. You work hard, you get better, and you make the most of your talent. Some people think the world owes them something. They believe they should be rewarded for their talent, not work for it. But a growth mindset says you can change your situation. You can work harder, learn more, and build better relationships. You can grow, not just wait for the world to change. Sometimes people avoid their problems instead of facing them. They believe their life is perfect, even when it's not. When a relationship ends, they feel like they're broken. But a growth mindset helps you see the relationship as something that needed more care, not just a failure. You can learn from it, grow, and build better connections. When it comes to your child, if they believe some kids are smart and others are not, you can't just argue with them. You have to show them a different way. Talk about effort, learning, and growth. Share your own stories of struggle and success. Let them see that learning is what matters, not being born smart. So, here's the story. You're helping your child and you notice they're not really enjoying their schoolwork. They call it easy or boring. You want to change that? You start asking them questions to make the work more fun. You help them find ways to challenge themselves. You play games with their homework like making silly sentences. They start coming up with their own ways to make things harder. It's not just about school or sports. You encourage them to talk about how they learned to make friends or help others. You want them to know that learning and growing is more important than just being smart or being the best. At first, your child still likes the idea that they're special and don't need to work hard. But as you keep talking about growth and learning, they start to change. They begin to care more about being a real player, not just being special. They even start pointing out when others in the family are thinking in a fixed way. You laugh and joke about it. You know that the fixed mindset is tempting because it feels like it gives kids a lifetime of success just for being who they are. But it's hard to shift from that to a growth mindset. Sometimes the problem isn't not working hard enough, but working too hard for the wrong reasons. You might have a child who's working really hard, but they're not doing it for learning, they're doing it to prove themselves. You have to realize that the pressure you're putting on them is causing stress. You need to help them change their mindset so they can enjoy what they're doing. You work with a counselor who helps you understand that your child needs freedom and acceptance, not perfection. You start letting them choose how much they want to study and how they want to learn. You help them see that learning is about understanding and joy, not just grades. You also start looking for schools that focus on learning, not just on getting the best grades. You learn to separate your needs from your child's. You let go of wanting them to be number one and instead support them in becoming the best version of themselves. You start to listen more to what your child is trying to tell you. You realize that mindset is not just about learning, it's about willpower, about controlling your temper, about making changes in your life. You start to see that willpower isn't just something you have or don't have. It needs help, strategies, and practice. You learn that controlling your anger is not just about being strong, it's about learning how to respond in a way that makes sense. You start to understand that growth is about learning, not about being right or wrong. You start to change how you think and how you act. You start to grow. When people stop thinking in fixed ways, like thinking some people are naturally better than others, they start learning new ways to control themselves. Every time they mess up, it's not the end. It's just a clue on how to do better next time. Keeping change isn't easy. Once something improves, people often stop doing what helped it improve. Like when you stop taking medicine after you feel better? But change needs support. Without it, it can go away fast. That's why Alcoholics Anonymous tells people they'll always be alcoholics. It's to stop them from getting lazy. Mindset change isn't just about learning a few tricks. It's about seeing the world in a new way. Wes, a dad, tried new ways with his son, Mickey. The behavior improved, but Wes stopped using the new strategies. He got angry again. The same thing happens with couples who start communicating better. They stop working on it and the problems come back even worse. Change needs time, effort, and support. When people switch to a growth mindset, they move from judging each other to helping each other grow. Every day has chances to grow. Try asking yourself each morning, what can I learn today? How can I help others grow? Make a plan and stick with it. When you fail, make a new plan. And when you succeed, ask, how do I keep growing? Remember, you can choose your direction. Change is hard, but it's worth it. People who change say their lives are better. They feel more alive and open. It's up to you to decide if change is right for you. Keep the growth mindset in your thoughts. It will guide you when things get tough. In this part of the book, Carol Dweck shares stories of famous people who didn't start as natural geniuses. She talks about Thomas Edison, who had a lot of failures but kept trying because he believed he could learn. Then she mentions Charles Darwin and Wolfgang Mozart, who also had to work hard and didn't just rely on talent. These examples show that success usually comes from effort, not just being born with ability. Dweck also shares stories about students who were praised for being smart and how that made them avoid challenges. When they failed, they felt bad and gave up. But when students were praised for their effort, they kept going and learned more. This shows that how we praise people matters a lot. She talks about how people who believe in growth mindsets, those who think abilities can be developed, tend to do better in school, sports, and work. For example, a teacher named Marva Collins believed in her students and helped them grow, even when they struggled. She showed that with support and effort, anyone can improve. Dweck also shares stories about athletes and business leaders who succeeded because they kept learning and didn't give up when they failed. She says that people who think they can grow are more likely to take on challenges and keep improving. The key is to see failure as a chance to learn, not as a sign of being bad at something. Dweck talks about how people who believe they can grow and learn are more likely to succeed in many areas of life. She gives examples of leaders like Jack Welch and Gerstner who kept learning and didn't give up when things got hard. They saw failure as a chance to improve, not as a sign they weren't good enough. This mindset helped them become great leaders. She also mentions other people who succeeded because they never stopped trying. For example, Anne Mulcahy turned around a struggling company and proved that effort and determination can make a big difference. These stories show that growth mindset is not just for students, it's important in every part of life. Dweck explains that when people believe their abilities can change, they are more likely to take on challenges and keep improving. This belief helps them stay motivated and not give up when things get tough. She also talks about how relationships can be affected by mindset. People with a growth mindset are more likely to work through problems and grow together, while a fixed mindset can lead to blame and conflict. She shares stories of couples who learned to communicate better and grow in their relationships because they believed in effort and learning. This shows that mindset affects not just work and school, but also how we connect with others. Dweck also talks about how parents, teachers, and coaches play a big role in shaping a child's mindset. She shares examples of teachers like Marva Collins and Rafe Esquith, who encourage their students to keep trying and believe in their ability to grow. These teachers helped their students develop a growth mindset that helped them succeed in school and life. She ends by talking about how changing mindset can be done through workshops and education. She shares some of the books and research that helped her understand mindset better, showing that this idea is supported by many experts in psychology and education. She talks about how mindset isn't just about school or work, it affects everything in life. She gives examples of people who changed their mindset and saw big improvements in their lives. One of these people is a teacher named Marva Collins. She helped her students believe they could do anything if they kept trying. Her students grew a lot because they had a growth mindset. Another teacher, Rafe Esquith, also encouraged his students to keep learning and not give up. These teachers showed how important it is to believe in effort and learning. She also mentions other experts who support the idea of mindset. People like John Gottman, who studied relationships, found that couples with a growth mindset are better at solving problems together. And there's Daniel Goleman, who wrote about emotional intelligence. He shows how being aware of our emotions helps us grow and succeed. Carol also talks about how changing your mindset can be learned through workshops and education. She shares some books that helped her understand mindset better, like The New Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain and Learned Optimism. Carol is a psychologist who has spent her life studying how people think and grow. She has worked at top universities, and her ideas have been covered in many big magazines. She lives in California with her husband. Her book is about how believing in growth can change your life for the better. So, what are the key lessons from this book? First, the most important lesson is that your mindset shapes how you learn and grow. If you believe your abilities are fixed, you'll avoid challenges and fear failure. But if you believe you can grow through effort, you'll embrace challenges and keep learning. That's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Another key lesson is that praise matters. When you praise someone for their ability, it can make them fear failure. But when you praise their effort, it encourages them to keep trying. So, focus on the process, not just the outcome. Also, remember that everyone starts with a love for learning, but a fixed mindset can stop that. When things get hard, it's easy to give up, but pushing through and keeping trying can change your path. Finally, growth is about resilience. Even when things are tough, people with a growth mindset keep moving forward. They don't let setbacks define them. They use them as opportunities to learn and grow. So, the next time you face a challenge, ask yourself, can I learn from this? Can I keep going? That's the heart of a growth mindset.